The Point Park women's cross-country team are your RSC champs. Men's and women's playoff soccer started this week, and volleyball get ready for playoffs. Pitt football get a much-needed win over Syracuse, while the Penguins sit at the bottom of the Metro Division. And the World Series winners have been crowned, while we get stellar performances from the NFL and NHL, while the NBA continues on strong. It's time to come on down to the Pioneer Sideline. Hello, and welcome back to Pioneer Sideline. I'm your host, Natalia Hillen. The Point Park men's soccer team played Oakland City University at Highmark Stadium in the RSC quarterfinals this past Monday, and unfortunately took a loss 2-1. The game was originally scheduled for Saturday, November 5th, but was rescheduled due to a fire in Oakland City's bus. In the first half, Oakland City scored the first goal, taking a 1-0 lead over the Pioneers. And in the second half, they scored another, making the score 2-0. Point Park had some opportunities to score throughout the game, but could only get one in the last 24 minutes, which was scored by Yame Ginovard. Oakland City is seeded 5th and will be playing WVU Tech in the semifinals on Wednesday, November 9th at 7 p.m. Overall, the Pioneers had a great season, coached for the first time under Coach Cameron Williams. They ended up getting points in 9 of the 12 games they played this year. Nice job this season, boys. The Point Park women's soccer team is in the running for the 2022 River States Conference Soccer Championship. They will be playing the University of Rio Grande in the semifinals on Wednesday, November 9th at 6 p.m. at Highmark Stadium. The winner will be playing either IU Kokomo or IU East in the finals on Saturday, November 12th. Good luck, Pioneers. Switching gears over to the Point Park men's and women's cross-country team. The Pioneers competed on Saturday, November 5th at Indiana University Kokomo for the RSC Championship. The Pioneers had a run with gusting wins the entire race. The men's team placed 5th out of 10 teams, and the women's team had a total team score of 44 and came in first place overall out of 11 teams. The women's team qualified for the NAIA National Championship and will be traveling to Tallahassee, Florida on November 18th. There were 77 runners competing in the championships, and the women's team had a total of 12 runners in the 5K. The first place overall runner in the 5K was senior Alyssa Campbell, who ran with a time of 18 minutes and 56 seconds. She was the RSC Runner of the Year, and this was the third time she was awarded that title. Other runners that made the top 25 were junior Allie Placio, coming in 17th with a 20:56, freshman Kiera Sawyers in 23rd place with a 21:20, and senior Natalia Zuko in 25th with a 21:22. Head coach Tim Kramer commented on how he thought the women did. Quote, "The women came into today determined to make up for the narrow defeat at last year's championships. They have all responded to the target on their back and ran with a chip on their shoulder to earn the right to represent Point Park in the River States Conference at the NAIA Nationals in 2 weeks." End quote. Good luck to the women's team as they practice and prepare for nationals next week. After the break, we hear from Hannah Bazet on how the volleyball team looks to take on the RSC playoffs and how the men's and women's basketball teams have done so far.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Good evening, and welcome back to Newsnight. Most of the student body of the Pittsburgh Public School.
Some of the United States allies.
Thursday, the FBI was seen raiding.
Let's get started with today's forecast.
Today's high will only reach about 31 degrees.
It's looking a little cooler than we've seen in the past few weeks.
All this and more?
All this and more.
All this and more coming up on Newsnight.
Coming up on Newsnight.
Coming up on Newsnight.
Welcome back. Now I'll send things over to Hannah Bazet to talk about how Pioneer Volleyball is doing, as well as what men's and women's basketball are up to. Hannah?
Thanks, Nat. Point Park Volleyball has remained hot and undefeated in the RSC Conference play as playoffs pursue. On Tuesday, November 1st, the Pioneers played Carlow University at home where they dominated in all 3 sets. The first set had 15 kills alone, and the girls made quick work of Carlow. Leading 18-9 already, the Pioneers then got the final 7 points to secure the first set victory at a score of 25-9. The second and third sets were similar stories, with Point Park leading the entire game and leaving no room for Carlow to come back. The second set had 16 kills and the third had 14, which left the Pioneers with 45 kills among the 3 sets. The second set ended with a score of 25-13 and the third ended with 25-19. Stephanie Rivera Pacheco had 17 kills, 8 digs, 4 aces, and 3 blocks throughout the 3 sets. Amanda Contois had 8 kills, Melissa Schroeder had 4 kills and 3 blocks, Holia Follador had 7 kills, and Madison Sema had 5. The team used 3 setters throughout the match, and all 3 were in the double digits for assists, as well as combining for 10 digs. The back row was also busy, with Ashley Castelli picking up 7 digs. Carrying the momentum into Saturday, November 5th, the girls played Oakland City University, where they once again swept the match. To add to the intensity of the match, it was senior night for our Pioneers, where a packed house cheered on the 5 seniors. Leading 19-11 in the first, the Pioneers finished the set with a score of 25-17. The Mighty Oaks fought back in the second and fought for a lead of their own, and in the middle of the second, they were up 13-12. Digging in their heels, the Pioneers then went on a 7-2 run and tied the set at 18-18. The Pioneers sealed the second set victory with a score of 25-20. Throughout the third, the Pioneers kept a lead over the Mighty Oaks and were at 20-13 before clenching the third set victory and winning the game 3-0. Point Park seniors put on a show, with Madison Sema getting a team high of 13 kills and Stephanie Rivera Pacheco adding 9 kills of her own. Finally, senior Melissa Schroeder had 6 to add to the tally, and Star Lakin grabbed 19 assists and Ashley Castelli had 8. This was the final game for the regular season play in the River States Conference, and the Pioneers ended their regular season with a 17-0 record. The Pioneers will host the RSC Championship at home from November 11th to the 12th. The winner of the match will earn an automatic bid to the NAIA National Championship. Point Park has the upper hand as they have a perfect conference record and an active winning streak of 8 games, and therefore have earned an automatic bid to compete for the championship. We're so excited for our Pioneers and can't wait to cheer them on in the upcoming matches this weekend. Okay, sorry, I just want to breathe for a second. Similar to volleyball, Point Park's men's and women's basketball teams have been on fire too. The men's team played their first game of the season on Tuesday, November 1st against Penn State Greater Allegheny, where they sealed a 78-66 victory. At halftime, the Pioneers were up 42-30 and stepped on the gas to secure the victory. During the second half, the Pioneers' lead grew as high as 17 and the team maintained double digits throughout. Sharon Shafino put up 17 points and made 3 of 6 trays. Kyrie Codas had 12 points, 6 boards, and 5 assists, and Jags Jawar had 9 rebounds, all in efforts to win the game. The Pioneers finished their season opener with a win, ending in a score of 78-66 Pioneers. Carrying the momentum into Saturday's game, the team played Concordia University and beat them 76-72. Tied 37-37 at the half, the Pioneers turned up the heat and worked together to secure the game's victory. Key players included Sharon Shafino, who led with 23 points, Joe Vowry, who had 18 points in the final 20 minutes, as well as 5 rebounds, Kyrie Cotes, who had 13 points, and finally Jalen Stamps, who had 8 points, 7 rebounds, and 3 assists. To begin the second half, the Pioneers began by scoring the first 6 points. Eventually, the Pioneers got to a 55-43 lead, but Concordia fought back and closed the gap to get the score to 68-63 with 3 minutes remaining. The Cardinals scored a tray and were up 3 until Shafino made a pair of free throws and Vowry followed up, also making his free throws, to give the Pioneers their 4-point lead. This game was the second of the season and ended with a score of 76-72. The team faced off again on Saturday, November 5th against Concordia University, where they won again. This game was much closer, but the Pioneers finished on top with a score of 56-43. The men's basketball team plays again on Saturday, November 12th against Penn State Schuylkill, where they are hoping they can keep up with their winning ways. Finally, women's basketball began on Tuesday, November 1st, where they faced Penn State Greater Allegheny in what turned out to be a blowout match for the Pioneers. Things started off slow as the game was tied 7-7 after the first 4.5 minutes. Then, the Pioneers put in the work and ended the first quarter leading 24-14. They added to their lead, and by halftime, the score was 50-35. There was never a chance for the Lions to regain the ground as the Pioneers went on a 38-12 run in the third and were up by as many as 44 points in the second half. The final score of the season opener was 107-69 Pioneers. Everybody lent a hand to secure this victory. Taylor Rinn led with 20 points, Sierra Sonetta had 16 points, Ari Blada and Emma Pavlik scored 15 apiece, Tanner Hoffner had 17 points and 15 rebounds, and finally Alexis Giles added 13 points of her own, all in effort to win. The girls played their second game of the season on Monday, November 7th against Duquesne University and battled it out throughout the entire game. The game ended with a score of 94-47 Duquesne. The girls face off again Saturday, November 12th against Bryant and Stratton Buffalo in Buffalo, New York. We are wishing the girls the best of luck in their upcoming game. That's all I have. Back to you, Nat.
Thanks, Hannah. After the break, we'll get some insight on how the rest of the sports world is doing. Stay tuned. Welcome back. We now send things over to Dylan Sechrist to update us on all things locally. Dylan?
Thanks, Nat. Pittsburgh sports have been interesting to say the least. After losing 4 straight and sitting at 4-4-1, the Penguins had the scary task of playing one of the best teams in hockey so far this year in the Bruins on Tuesday. After taking a 5-2 lead at around 11 minutes into the second period, the Pens surrendered 3 unanswered goals to allow the Bruins to take it to overtime, where Boston ended up winning 6-5 on a Hampus Lindholm goal. The following day, the Penguins took a trip to Buffalo to face the Sabres. The Pens took a 3-1 lead 8 seconds into the third period thanks to Jake Gensel, with the previous goals scored by Jason Zucker in the first and Josh Archibald in the second. After that Gensel goal, the Sabres exploded for 5 goals in the rest of the third, handing the Pens yet another loss. The Penguins didn't play again until Saturday, where they faced the Seattle Kraken at home. Sidney Crosby scored the first goal of the game in the second period, but Vince Dunn answered right back and knotted it at 1 apiece. The third period opened with a Yanni Gourde goal to give Seattle the lead, but Jake Gensel tied it at 2 later on. The final dagger, however, was scored by former Penguin Brandon Tanev to give the Kraken the win late in the third. The Pens are now 4-6-2 and look to turn things around on Wednesday against the 6-6-2 Capitals. The Pitt Panthers went into this weekend 4-4 against number 20 ranked Syracuse. In a low-scoring affair, the Panthers came out on top, upsetting Cuse 19-9 as one of the many ranked upsets this college football weekend. Keaton Slovis was still lackluster in the game, throwing for only 176 yards, 0 touchdowns, an interception, and a fumble. Israel Abanikanda was definitely missed by the offense, but not for long as Rodney Hammond Jr. took his 28 carries for 124 yards and a touchdown. Pitt's defense also stepped up big time, holding Syracuse to only 145 yards, a season low for their offense. Pitt will look to carry their momentum into Virginia against the 3-6 Cavaliers. With that in mind, I'm going to send things to John Mayer for this week's Steelers Fan 7 Sideline Spotlight. John?
Thanks, Dylan. The Pittsburgh Steelers were on bye this past week, but there is still plenty of action around the NFL that should have Steelers Nation's attention. Let's start in the AFC North, where the Browns were on a bye week as well, while both the Ravens and Bengals picked up blowout wins over NFC South opponents in the Saints and the Panthers, as the Steelers are now 3.5 games back of the division lead behind the Ravens. Former Steelers receiver Chase Claypool made his Bears debut last week in his first ever game for Chicago against the Dolphins after being traded for a second-round pick. And Claypool tallied 2 catches for 13 yards in the Bears' loss to the Dolphins this past week. The Steelers welcome the Saints to Pittsburgh coming off a bye, while New Orleans is coming off a short week after falling to the Ravens this past Monday night. The Steelers will likely be getting back NFL Defensive Player of the Year, TJ Watt, and his return is sorely needed. The Steelers have dropped 6 of the past 7 games since the defensive star left the lineup, while ranking last in the NFL in sacks during Watt's absence, after ranking first in the league in sacks every year since TJ Watt was drafted in 2017. The return of TJ Watt is definitely something to look forward to for Steelers fans, as his return will hopefully create the spark the Steelers need to turn the season around. That's all I have in this week's Steelers Fan 7 Sideline Spotlight. Back to you, Nat.
Thanks, John. Now let's hear from Matt Palangi with a recap of the NFL's past week. Who was crowned World Series champs, what's going on in the NBA, and how the rest of the NHL is doing. Matt?
Thanks, Nat. The MLB season is officially over. The Houston Astros took home the trophy. Rookie shortstop Jeremy Pena won the World Series MVP, becoming the 3rd rookie ever, but he is only the 1st rookie position player to ever do so. It was a great season with many memorable moments. Keep an eye out for the big moves in the offseason that are yet to come. With that being said, it's time to recap the NFL week. Week 9 of the NFL season is officially over. It started off with an interesting matchup of the Houston Texans versus the Philadelphia Eagles. The Eagles unsurprisingly won this game to remain undefeated, but the Texans did fight strong and kept the fight throughout most of the game. There were some big performances with some disappointments as well. Arguably the best team in the NFL, the Buffalo Bills, lost a heartbreaker to their division rival, the New York Jets. The Jets collect their 6th win of the season and continue to surprise us all. A very Atlanta Falcons-like moment happened on Sunday. The Atlanta Falcons were tied with the LA Chargers late in the game and forced a crucial fumble. On the recovery, the Falcons lineman looked like he was going to take the ball all the way, but proceeded to drop it, and this led to a Chargers field goal to win. The Green Bay Packers continued to struggle after only putting up 9 points and losing to the Detroit Lions. The best single-player performances were by Bengals running back Joe Mixon and Bears quarterback Justin Fields. Joe Mixon had 5 total touchdowns in their win versus the Panthers, and Justin Fields had just under 200 rushing yards and over 120 passing yards, while also putting up a total of 4 touchdowns as well in the unfortunate loss to the Dolphins. Seattle won again to keep their first-place spot in the NFC West, and the Vikings advanced to 7-1 with their win over the Commanders. The Sunday night game featured the Chiefs playing against the Titans. This game went to overtime, and the Chiefs barely pulled it out, while Chiefs quarterback Patrick Mahomes attempted a whopping 68 passes in the team's win. Monday Night Football was a game between the New Orleans Saints and the Baltimore Ravens. Baltimore took the victory, and Ravens quarterback Lamar Jackson threw his 100th career touchdown pass. Let's take a short recap of how the NBA is looking. The Cleveland Cavaliers beat their hometown hero LeBron James and the LA Lakers to continue to win and also prove that the Cavaliers are a legitimate contender this season. In the standings, the Cavaliers fight well behind the Bucks, who remain undefeated. In the Western Conference, the Suns, Jazz, and Grizzlies have looked the strongest so far. In the offseason, the Utah Jazz trade away their 2 best players in Rudy Gobert and Donovan Mitchell and are somehow still managing to entertain but also win games at a good level. Steph Curry struggles to start off the season, shooting the ball at a career low. The Lakers, led by stars LeBron James and Anthony Davis, still cannot figure out how to win games this year. With all these big-name roster teams struggling, does this really mean we are now in the new era of basketball? It's hard to admit, but it seems just like it. On that note, let's hop over to the NHL. In the Eastern Conference, the Bruins, Devils, and the Hurricane continue to dominate, while the Red Wings are just behind them, but still playing at a high level. In the Western Conference, the Stars and the Jets are winning lots of games, but the Vegas Golden Knights look unreal at an 11-2 record. The Oilers superstar Connor McDavid leads the NHL in points and goals scored and keeps giving us reasons to put him in the best player conversation. The NHL season is just getting started, so anything can still happen. With all this being said, that is all I have today. Back to you, Nat.
Thanks, Matt. After the break, we come back with Case of the Week. Stay tuned.
Regular physical activity is one of the most important things you can do for your health. The benefits of physical activity include brain health, weight management, reducing disease, strengthening your bones and muscles, and improving your ability to do everyday activities. So, it's time to get up and be active.
Welcome back. The Pittsburgh Penguins are currently on a 7-game losing streak and sit just 1 win over the Blue Jackets, who are currently last in the Metro Division. With this in mind, what do we think the Penguins need to do or need to adjust to get back into the win column? Today, I'm joined by Ryan and Hannah to hear what they think. So, Ryan, what do we think about the Penguins losing 7 games in a row? Does it really have to do with the players or the team as a whole? What do you think?
I think it's a mixture of both. So the Penguins are not finishing the game off. They will get up to like a nice sized lead going to the third period. Then I don't know, they lose the whole lead and go into overtime and end up losing, kind of like what happened in the Boston game last week. And also we have a sloppy power play at the moment, which is not helping with us. We passed the puck too much around the zone. We played too much catch. We're not shooting towards the net is what our issue is. And also our defense is leaving our goalie hanging up to dry, which doesn't help because we don't have a solid goalie, which I think the Pens should work on. But it's just more of a team not mushing together too much. And then also our star players are doing a lot, but our supportive players are not doing enough to help out.
Gotcha. Hannah?
I agree with Ryan. It's definitely a combination of things. It's not just one person or one thing in particular. They do need to shoot more on net. Definitely the power play has been struggling, and they've just been so brutal on the road. I think they just kind of fell down the rabbit hole, and they need to find what they need to fix and dig themselves back out of it.
It seems like they're not clicking as a team. Like Ryan was saying, it's very like, okay, the star players are doing their thing, but where's the defense at? Where are they when in the power plays where they're not really going towards the net, they're kind of just shuffling around on the ice. So I think they need to bring the team together. They need to figure out specific things that they need to do to improve, because this 7-game losing streak is just not it.
Yeah.
Like, we're the Pittsburgh Penguins. Come on. We got to do a little bit better than that. Get their heads in the game.
Yeah, it is really early on in the season though, so there is definitely time to fix these mistakes. I'm not too stressed about it yet, but obviously the sooner they can get their groove going again and work as a cohesive unit, the better. But certainly there's a lot more hockey to be played, and the next couple games we have coming up are against easier teams, so hopefully we'll get our rhythm back, but they definitely need to fix the problems that have been ongoing.
So one thing I do want to mention, so last time we were on a big losing streak like this was the 2017 year, which year we won the Cup, which what you said, there's a lot of hockey left. We are so early in the season. It's kind of like talking about how bad a team is in week 1 of NFL football. There's a lot of season left. So anything can turn around. We just need a bounce back in against the Capitals this Wednesday and then moving down the stretch. We just got to have a bounce back. Our goalies need to step up. Our defense needs to step up. And then our supporter players got to help out. So Sidney Crosby's not having the leading for 18 I think he has 18 goals on the season. He leads the goal assist, and he's second most for plus and minus. So it's just too much for one player. We got to start supporting each other.
I do agree with you both that I think it is too early to see. I mean, there is a lot of hockey left, and that goes for any sport in general. Like, you can't really judge the first, couple of games.
Yeah.
There's still a lot of time to get their stuff together, figure out what they need to do to click as a team on the ice to get those wins. So we're going to have to see how they do against the Capitals on Wednesday.
Yeah.
Well, that is all that we have time for this week. We hope you are able to join us next week at the same Pioneer time, the same Pioneer channel, and the same Pioneer Sideline.